Hey, welcome back, Knicks fans. Just wanted to recap the game with the Sixers today. Well, this was pretty tough to watch, obviously. They did play well in the first half. Tried in the third quarter, and then by the end of the third quarter and going into the fourth quarter, we faded away as usual. It's been a story this whole season, and it's not like there's anything that's wrong or we lack confidence in the fourth quarter. We're just not a good team. That's what happens to bad teams. You know, they may compete a little bit, but then as the game goes on, especially against good teams, the good teams basically ratchet up their defense, start to play better offense, and start to execute better, and the bad teams usually just wilt, and that's usually what happens. And so it's just because it's a bad team. And in my opinion, the reason why it's a bad team is a terrible defensive squad. Because you're starting Alec Burks and also you're starting Evan Fournier, and you're in a backcourt. They can't keep anybody out of the paint, and they're not that great with the rotations. And then also you have Julius Randle, who just doesn't even try. He doesn't care anymore about playing defense anymore. And actually, the last few games with R.J. Barrett, since he's taken over as the primary playmaker on the offensive end, trying to take over as a defense, I kind of feel like he's not really trying as hard on the defensive end like he was earlier in the year, and then also the last couple of months. And so they're just not putting in the offer on a defensive end, and it's really terrible. The other thing I really want to talk about right now is really just about the front office and his coach. The coach, he has only one point guard on his roster. It's Miles McBride, and he refuses to play Miles McBride. Watched an interview on SNY with Mark Berman, and essentially Mark Berman said that the coach told McBride that because he's a rookie and sometimes rookies just have to wait their turn, and and that's the reason why he's not really getting any burn right now, because he's a rookie and he needs to wait his turn. In my opinion, that's probably one of the more absurd things I've ever heard in my life. And because it's not even as though we're a winning ball club. And, if we're a winning ball club and you had this kid in the wings who's playing really well in the G League, yeah, you can say, okay, he needs to, you can hang back, and just, kind of let him wait a little bit, right? And let him develop in practice and also in the G League. But that's not the case. The coach doesn't have a point guard. He's trying to play Alec Burks as a point guard, which is like Alec Burks is right now being miscast. And so this is probably the worst basketball Alec Burks has ever played in his career. His defense is dropping off. His offense is like in a toilet. I think he might be shooting below 40% for the year from the field. And his 3-point percentage has dropped off dramatically ever since the coach forced him into the role as a point guard. And so all around, it's just been a really big problem for this team, and it's mostly because of the coach. It's because of his philosophy and beliefs, and sometimes because, when you're too rigid with your philosophy and you don't want to make adjustments, you don't want to change, you really start to look stupid, and the coaches really start to look really stupid right now. And so, it's odd that he's doing what he's doing, I'm trying to, now I'm thinking, like, they have, first of all, I think in order, they have to get rid of Tom Thibodeau at the end of the season. And the reason why that is because Tom Thibodeau is not going to play, he's not going to play young guys, right? Not only does he not play young guys, he seems like just the kind of coach that, like, if he doesn't feel you should play, he's not even going to give you a shot, right? If he feels like, he doesn't want to deal with you, he just won't deal with you. He won't give you a shot. And so, but mostly he does that mostly to young players, right? And so, and the problem with that is you gave up a first round pick, and also you gave up a first round pick in Kevin Knox. So essentially, you gave up 2 firsts to get Cam Reddish, and you need to make a decision on Cam Reddish this year. And Cam Reddish was getting 20 minutes a game when he was in Atlanta, and he wanted more playing time. And he comes to the Knicks, and he's averaging like maybe 8 minutes, 10 minutes a game. The only reason he's playing close to 20 minutes the last few games is because Grimes has been out. So what happens when Grimes comes back? Then Cam goes back to playing like 3 to 5 minutes a game, and so that is just absurd. Obviously, what he needs to do is he needs to bench the older guys, play Fournier, Burks a lot less, and play these young guys a lot more, so you can see what you have in these young guys and see if they develop right. And so R.J. Barrett is looking good, obviously, right? But it's he's not the only person you need to make a decision about. And so I just feel like this coach has just been really bad for the young players, and it's just they have too many decisions they have to make next year about all these young players. And if they don't get rid of Thibodeau, they're not going to have the information or the data they need to make these decisions. And so, for example, you have Cam Reddish, like I said. You got Obi Toppin. They're going to have to make a decision on Obi Toppin next year. Who else do they need to make a decision on the squad? Sorry. Miles McBride, believe it or not, they have to make a decision on Miles McBride going into next season, towards the end of next season, because he only signed a 3-year contract. And so Miles McBride, if this guy really is a good player and Thibodeau doesn't want to play him and he gets pissed and he just wants to go somewhere, number one, he wants to go somewhere where he can play. And number two, he wants to get paid a decent amount too, right? And so that's another option. That's somebody else that may walk at the end of next season as well. And so those three guys, I think they're in danger of having to either trade those guys or lose them towards the end of next season. And so it's a shame. It's really a shame. And all this is because of basically what the coach is doing. And the front office is partially to blame for this as well, right? I mean, they signed players that the coach couldn't use in Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier. These guys are not very good defensive guys, although I'm kind of liking Evan Fournier a little more. I like his aggressiveness, and, he's a terrible defender, but he does try to play the passing lane. He does what he can. He's just bad at it. He's trying, but he's just bad at it. And so it's really crazy. And then Emmanuel Quickly, they put in a lot of work on Emmanuel Quickly. It looks like, from what I've heard and from what the coaches said, Emmanuel Quickly and Obi Toppin spent all of last summer in New York, so they mostly worked out with the coaching staff, including Tom Thibodeau. And it feels like Obi Toppin, I see improvement in Obi Toppin, but Emmanuel Quickly, I just don't see an improvement. It's not even just because his shot is not falling. I'm setting that aside. The only reason his shot is not falling is because he's playing out of position. He's playing point guard. My biggest thing for Emmanuel Quickly was, can he basically shoot off the dribble? He still can't shoot off the dribble, right? And can he actually get to the basket? I just don't know how he got this far in basketball without being able to drive to the basket. It just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. He's just really bad at driving to the basket. Every time he drives to the basket, he doesn't even know how to use his body to shield off the defender. He'll get by the defender, and he'll go up, and he just goes up with this weird, weak move where he just kind of he puts the ball out there. He kind of lays the ball out there for anyone to jump up and just smack it, right? And so it just doesn't make any sense to me. And so I thought he was going to work on that all in the summertime. They say he was working on it. It just looks terrible. And I just can't understand why he cannot drive to the basket. And you look at his backcourt mate over in Kentucky. He's more of a combo guard, that kid. And so, but he can drive to the basket. He's just a more complete player, just way better player than Quickly is. And so I think they need to get rid of Thibodeau this summer because of all the issues they have with him, because he's not going to develop and play the young guys. But I feared the front office may try to keep Thibodeau coming into next season because it does look bad if they have to fire him at the end of the second year. I really don't want Thibodeau fired at the end of this year. But the problem is they can't convince this guy to play these young players. It's like we're not making the playoffs, and this guy doesn't even care about playing Obi Toppins a little more. He doesn't care about playing Miles McBride. and he doesn't care about playing Cam Reddish more. If Grimes was still playing, he wouldn't play him, and he doesn't even care about playing Jericho Sims that much either. You know, the only reason Jericho Sims, I bet, is playing is because they fear they're going to lose Mitchell Robinson this year, and so basically the front office is like, look, you got to play this kid. We need to see what we have, especially in case we lose Mitchell Robinson, right? And so this is just absurd. The front office obviously looks like they can't do anything with Thibodeau. They're too close, and so they can't actually, play hardball with them and say, hey, look, dude, you need to play these young guys, and if you don't play these young guys, this is the end of your career with the New York Knicks. That's what they need to do, but they clearly are not willing to do that. And I fear they may try to bring him into next season because they're trying to extend their time with the New York Knicks. This is the game they're playing. They don't want to fire Thibodeau this season because now it puts them on a hot seat to pick a good coach, right? Most organizations is not going to let you pick a third coach. You pick one coach, it didn't work. The second coach doesn't work, you're out, right? And so the trick they're going to try to play is they're going to have Thibodeau come into next season. This is what I think they're going to try to do. He comes into next season, and if it's not going well, they'll fire him going into in the middle of the season, and then they're probably going to make Johnny Bryan the coach, just so they can see if Johnny Bryan can actually get the job done for them, right? And so, and then if they're not comfortable with Johnny Bryan and they can get a better coach, then they'll get that better coach and say, oh, we just needed Johnny Bryan, which is there to kind of as a stopgap to kind of like so we can have consistency, but he doesn't really count as our second coach. And then they'll try to hire someone basically at the end of the third year going into the fourth year as a new coach. And then hopefully that person gets another 2 years. That's what they're trying to do to kind of extend their time with the New York Knicks. But the problem is that may not work because you made all these moves. You traded basically 2 first-round picks for Cam Reddish. You need to make a decision on Obi Toppin. And you're going to need to make a decision on Miles McBride at the end of next season. And if you got this coach and you don't know what you have in these young kids, and then next season roll around and they're not properly developed because Tibbs had basically cramped their growth, it may not work. I mean, Dolan, yeah, he may not be he may not be a coach or he may not be like a genius GM, NBA GM, but he's no idiot. The dude likes basketball, and so he's keeping an eye on this stuff. He does understand the game. He does like basketball, and so they're playing with fire because all these trades they make essentially, all these moves they made essentially expires at the end of next year. So you got 3 players you're not going to get equal value or proper value back towards the end of next season because number one, you didn't train them up properly, you didn't develop them, and now you have to trade them because they may not want to come back, right? And so it may not work. Dolan might be like, you know what, you guys, this is only maybe your second coach you're about to pick, but the roster still looks terrible. You guys picked all these guys, and it's almost like the same old Knicks, right? Like we picked Frank Ntilikina, didn't develop him properly, and we kept bringing all these other stupid point guards, wasting time. Point guards would bring in, played him for 1 year, let him go, instead of trying to develop the kid Frank Ntilikina, regardless of how bad he was. You still got to try to do it. And if he's not a point guard, then you force him, have him play off ball, have him play the 2 guard or small forward, whatever. You had to develop this player. They didn't do it. They essentially benched this kid for, the whole time he was here. Didn't give him adequate playing time, and he walked, essentially, for nothing. They weren't able to trade him. His value was really low. They couldn't get anything for him, so he walked. Kevin Knox comes in. Same thing. You let him play his first year. The second year, because the coach is on the hot seat, decides not to play Kevin Knox anymore. And then you have Thibodeau who comes in, who's a defensive-minded coach. Now, Knox was on his 3rd year, terrible defender, always lost because he wasn't properly developed, wasn't forced to learn how to play defense properly. And now, essentially, he gets traded. A lot of people believe they act like we fleeced the Hawks. But it's like I really don't see it that way because we essentially gave up 2 first rounds for Cam Reddish, who we're not playing right now. So did we really fleece them? So you tell me. And so that was, and now we're doing the same thing with Obi Toppins. Draft this guy number 8 overall. Was the best. He was actually the most talented player at that pick. Very dynamic player, very high upside, and coach uses him improperly. Doesn't use him the right way. Plays him on basically 8 to 10 minutes. The last couple of games he's been playing 15 minutes. Yippee! But that's bull. He should be paying more like 25 minutes at least. But come next season, he's not going to be properly developed. They're not going to know what they really have in this guy, because especially if Tibbs is still the coach. And then actually with Johnny Bryant, if they have him play in the middle of next season, Johnny Bryant is probably going to think, I need to try to win as much games as possible to show that I'm a good coach. And so he's going to be pressing, and also is not going to, go for the youth movement either. And so it just kind of is continuing over. They're making the same mistake they've always made. Yes, it's like they have Thibodeau, who's supposed to be a respected coach. Yes, they have Leon Rose, who's supposed to be respected. Yes, they have Worldwide West, who's supposed to be respected and well connected. But at the end of the day, it's still going to be the same old Knicks because they're still doing the same thing, and they're still making the same mistakes, right? And so, so they may try that move, and I think it's risky. Dolan may not go for it, and they're putting they're putting their career at risk because they could end up getting fired, especially if they don't get rid of Thibodeau this year. I think that's they're playing with fire, bringing Thibodeau back next season because there's a good chance it will not work. If they don't get rid of him this season, and they try to fire him at the middle of next season, and then all these moves that they made expired, I think there's a high probability Dolan cleans house and gets rid of everybody. But if they get rid of Thibodeau this season, and they take a shot and try to hire a good coach, even if it's a bad coach, at least they'll get 2 seasons with that coach. And so there's a higher probability they actually last longer by getting rid of Thibodeau this year. But if they bring back Thibodeau next year, it just makes all their moves look really bad. And then they're actually digging a deeper grave for themselves, and then there's going to be a high probability Dolan fires everyone. Tibbs, all of the front office, kicks them all out, locks the door, tell them not to come back, probably calls security and then calls NYPD on them. So it's something I don't think they should do, and hopefully they do make a change at the end of the season, because I just I had no idea. Tibbs, like I said, I like his approach with some stuff. I think he's better probably with a more mature team. However, he's definitely not the proper coach for the team we have. I do think the one good thing about Tibbs is his the discipline and the heart he brings to the team in terms of the attitude, and he brings that hard work attitude, attention to detail, and I hope that kind of sticks with some of these young players. And I hope it sticks. It may not stick because you can just tell, for example, that I don't think Obi really likes him, and so I don't know if Obi is even paying attention or even sees him and picking up anything Thibodeau teaches him. Cam Reddish, I don't know if he's gonna pick up anything Thibodeau teaches him, because the other thing too is it's because of the way he treats these players may not respect him. And then on top of that, Julius Randle doesn't have any respect for the coach. If Julius doesn't have respect for the coach, and you got and then he's basically barking at Obi, do you think Obi is going to take the coach seriously? I don't think so. I mean, he's going to respect the coach and do what he says, but I don't think Obi's really going to be basically looking at him as a role model and taking in everything the coach tells him. Honestly, unfortunately, it feels like Obi probably wasted his summer trying to train with the coach. It was a waste of time. You spend all the time trying to connect with the coach, train with him. So hopefully you get more playing time this year. And the coach basically treats you like crap, plays you 8 to 10 minutes a game only. Yeah, he played 15 minutes, but he's really averaging 8 to 10 minutes a game this season. And he did all that work over the summer with the coach for what? He was better off going with someone else, going somewhere else and working on his game. Honestly, these guys might be better off. Just like these guys do need a regimen, right? Do need stuff they need to be working on, and the coach should be involved and say the coach should tell them, hey, this is what you need to work on over the summer, and then they need to set up some kind of like workout regimen for them so they can work on those weaknesses to become better players. Um, you know, that's what all coaches should be doing, and I think that's what Tom Thibodeau does. But unfortunately, there's a lot of coaching staff I think that doesn't they don't do that very well. So but in my opinion, I just think like Obi was probably better off like going somewhere else to work on his game because what was the point of all that, right? And same thing with Quickly. I mean, they spent the whole summer working with Quickly on being able to drive to the basket, and the kids still can't drive to the basket, and so that's just crazy to me. And so it's like, what? It's like, what's the point? And so, guys, that's pretty much what I have. Like and subscribe, please, please subscribe. Comment below. I'll be more than happy to respond if you comment. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.